Torture has been documented as a weapon of war in Syria, and the UN Human Rights Office, through its Voluntary Fund for Victims of Torture, is assisting torture victims to access much-needed rehabilitation services. Abu Yazan is next in line to see a doctor. We are at the Restart Centre in northern Lebanon. Abu Yazan has been a patient at the centre for nearly 2 years. Before fleeing Syria in 2012, he was held in detention, accused of being a terrorist. He says he was tortured.
يعني بالمناطق الحساسة كثير كانوا يحطون لنا الكهرباء، بس أكثريتها كان بالأعضاء التناسلية. وأبشع شيء كان هذا كله بالحمل، إنك تكون غرفة ما بتطلع قد الغرفة هي نكون فيها 60 64 مرة عدنا 64 شاب.
Dr. Sana Hamze, a psychotherapist, has been overseeing Abu Yazan's treatment.
He came with a lot of precaution and cautiousness. So after built confidentiality with him, he started to have this confidence towards us and also towards himself.
He remains bitter, describing the attacks against him as degrading.
وأتمنى من الله عز وجل ما يحط إنسان باللي انحطينا فيه، وعفوا أنا انحطيت بهيك شيء في غيري انحط بأسوأ من هيك.
The number of Syrians seeking safety in neighbouring countries like Lebanon is growing daily. The UN Refugee Agency has recorded 1 million Syrians in Lebanon alone. Many, including children, women and men, bear deep scars and trauma, preventing them from living in dignity. But with the help of Restart, which is supported by the UN Fund for Victims of Torture, there is hope.
The UN Voluntary Fund for Victims of Torture provides direct assistance to victims. Unlike the norms, the reports and the mechanism and institutions, this is one side of the UN work against torture that really relates to the peoples and to the suffering directly on the ground.
The 19-year-old Rehabilitation Centre is highly specialised in treating victims of torture and recognised as a centre for excellence throughout the region.
The main services those victims are mental health, included psychiatric services, psychotherapy, and also legal support, social support. When the Syrian crisis started, there is a lot of Syrian refugees approach the Restart Center and not registered with UNHCR.
It has treatment centres in the capital Beirut and in Tripoli. In 2013, the UN Fund for Victims of Torture enabled Restart to assist 180 victims, and it hopes to reach at least an additional 150 in 2014. Although the medical services are provided free of charge, many victims are still reluctant to speak up. Yusuf, not his real name, says he heard about the rehabilitation centre from a relative. Like Yusuf, many of the victims find it hard to speak out. When he finally opens up, he says he was held captive and subjected to electric shocks for allegedly taking part in protests.
صار ينزل من دموعي يعني إنه ما عاد شفت أحمر عيوني وقعت بالأرض هون إجوا أخذوني. وقت اللي أخذوني نزلوني على فرع. وقت اللي نزلت لتحت سطحوني على طاولة مثل هاي. صار يقولوا لي بدك تعترف قل لهم على شو بقى هي الطاولة كلها كهرباء. صار يحطوا لي كهرباء هون ومن فوق لتحت. صار يشغلوا الكهرباء ويعذبوني.
The centre acknowledges that the physical and mental after effects of torture not only affect the individual but an entire family.
When one member of the family is victim of torture, he's not only he is affected, all the family is affected. So for this reason, each member need intervention.
Separately, the centre has begun documenting evidence on alleged cases of torture, a process that could be useful for future prosecutions, both at a local and international level. Visiting the centre, Dr. Morad Al-Shazli, a psychiatrist and trustee of the UN Fund for Victims of Torture, commended the initiative.
More fresh your documentation, the more close it is to the actual incident, the more reliable it will become for future purposes. I mean by that, if the case goes to court.
Staff at the rehabilitation centre are periodically trained to cope with issues raised by the patients. Back in Tripoli, Abu Yazan is slowly piecing his life back together. Through the assistance of Restart, he was recently employed at a local school for children with special needs, where he teaches calligraphy.
In many countries, projects supported by the fund reinforce available services. In other areas, such as the borders with Syria, they must work alone. The fund responds both rapidly and in the long term to the plight of thousands of victims who would otherwise remain unattended and marginalized. This important work relies on strong, continuous contributions by states and private donors so that the fund can fulfill its unique mandate in support of victims of torture worldwide.